Question here, could the assassination of Iran's top nuclear scientist add a layer of uncertainty to the region? Well, as White House senior advisor Jared Kushner travels to Saudi Arabia and Qatar this week to continue efforts to stabilize relations in the Middle East, the question is, could these developments get in the way? We're joined now by Matthew Brodsky. He's a senior fellow at the Gold Institute for International Strategy. Matt, good to see you, and thanks for coming on. I know Iran has threatened retaliation, but this does sound familiar to threats made after the assassination of Iran's top general Soleimani back in January. But are there real concerns here given the recent actions?
Well, look, Iran is certainly going to try to retaliate, but we shouldn't forget that they've been at war with Israel for many, many years now, especially through proxies. And they've also, of course, been leading a terror war campaign throughout the region against Saudi Arabia, the UAE, and others, whether you're talking in Yemen and Lebanon, especially in Syria, as far as Israel is concerned. These are all hot zones that Iran is pressing forward with terrorism and causing problems for the region. So they're going to have a response, I'm certain of that, at some point. But their options are fairly limited right now. Their play, I'm sure right now, is to try to hold it as leverage for the Biden administration, where they will be able to get maximum concessions from a Joe Biden approach to foreign policy as opposed to a President Trump foreign policy.
Someone who may argue with you on that point would be John Brennan, CIA chief under former President Obama. He actually took to Twitter on Friday. I'll read this to you. This is what he says here. He says, "This was a criminal act and highly reckless. It risks lethal retaliation and a new round of regional conflict. Iranian leaders would be wise to wait for the return of responsible American leadership on the global stage and to resist the urge to respond against perceived culprits," end quote. It does seem like they're upset, those on the left, about this, but why would they be upset about folks that want to do harm to Americans? It seems as if they're picking their terrorists and saying, this one's not okay, this one is, this one's not okay, this one is. Why is that? Why can't everyone come together on this and fight against those who want to do harm against America?
Well, first, let's deal with the nonsense of what he claims, okay? First of all, the person that they killed, the scientist, was a brigadier general in the U.S. terror-designated Iran Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps. He was working to create one of the world's most dangerous weapons for the world's leading state sponsor of terrorism that had the expressed purpose of committing genocide, specifically against Israel, as they have written on their weapons. Now, as for how disingenuous this is, Obama, as president, was known as the drone president. He carried out, according to the Council on Foreign Relations, which is no right-wing think tank, he carried out some 540 targeted assassinations in his 8 years in office. Many of those were carried out under the CIA, which, of course, is what John Brennan was directing. So it's unbelievable that he would say that. Now, according to Obama's own law of war manual, it's put out in 2016 by the Department of Defense. What Israel did, if it turns out that it was Israel that did this attack, was legal according to Obama's and the Defense Department's definition, which is he was working on Iran's nuclear weapons program, and he was a brigadier general in a U.S. designated terrorist group. And I should say that finding in the Obama administration manual was actually showed that the Manhattan Project, the U.S. scientists working on creating the bomb during World War II, were also legitimate military targets. So he's wrong legally, he's wrong morally and ethically, and of course it's the wrong policy. And I'll tell you the reason behind this is because this isn't about preventing Iran from getting a nuclear weapon for these people. This is about America's strategic realignment away from our allies, our normal allies like Israel, Saudi Arabia, the UAE, and toward Iran.
Well, you bring up Israel. I want to ask you about that because I know you also advise the White House peace team on the Palestinian-Israeli peace process. A lot happened. You have some insight there. Talk to us about how these recent developments could impact the process there. We know Jared Kushner found a path for historic deals to normalize relations between Israel, the UAE, Bahrain, potential for other Arab countries to follow. Could there be any blowback here based on those recent actions, possibly by Israel?
I don't think there's going to be any blowback. I mean, the fact is, during the negotiations between Obama and Iran, these Arab states started to develop much greater under-the-table ties to Israel, and we're quite thankful that Obama was coming here at the invitation of the Speaker of the House at that time to lay out the case for what was wrong with the deal that was being approached. What the Trump administration has done under Jared Kushner and his peace team is nothing short of amazing when it comes to creating these two major normalization deals between the Israel, the UAE, and Bahrain, and adding Sudan into the mix. What this does is widen the circle of peace. Of course, there's an Iran element to this as well as just a peace element. When you look at how the Trump administration has wanted to handle the Middle East, a lot of it was to pull the U.S. directly out of having to wage the type of combat operations, but support our allies instead. So this widens that group that are against Iran. This also will make it much harder for Biden to make a bad deal because, remember, the people that Biden has aligned himself with and brought on board already, like Jake Sullivan at the NSC, these are people who secretly negotiated the deal behind Israel and our Arab allies' back. So if there is a united front from all the neighboring states, frankly, to the west of Iran, it's going to be a far harder challenge for Biden to sell out America and our regional allies' interests.
Fair point. Leave it there. Fair point. Matthew Brodsky. Matt, good to see you. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.